Welcome to The Fight with Teddy Atlas, presented by Dynamic Striking. I'm Ken Rideout, joined as always by the voice of all combat sports, the legend Teddy Atlas. Teddy, we're in the Trinity Boxing Club, in-person episode, special occasion. How are you feeling?
With the great Martin Snow, the proprietor of this place. He also has a place up the street. He does a great job. He helps kids in the neighborhood too. Gives them boxing lessons, confidence lessons. Nothing better than boxing to give you direction and discipline and those things that we all need at young ages. So, yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to be with you guys. We don't get too many opportunities to be together, to do one live. So it's great, and obviously, we made the most of it. You guys flew in for the fight at the Prudential Center. We'll talk about the UFC fights later, but you guys flew in. You had top seats. I see you right there. I was joking with you. I went over to see you. I said you couldn't get better seats. You had front row.
We could have gotten better seats. We could have been sitting with the head of the UFC like someone else I know. I got about 25 text messages like, I see Teddy and Dana, where are you? I said, we're in the cheap seats in the other front row on the other side.
Front row. Front row. But it was great. I mean, I was very, I was just touched by the way that Dana made me feel so at home, to be quite honest. You know, how nice he was to me and just how humble he is about his own success and everything, and the way he handles himself and the way that he's available to everyone, to all the fans that came up to him and everything. And I was very humbled by the way that the UFC fans, 20,000 of them, electric atmosphere, how they greeted me, how they welcomed me. They allow me into their domain. You know, I'm a boxing guy, I'm an old pug, and they allow me into their domain, and they're so gracious to me. And so I want people to know that's not missed on me. That's taken in a very serious way, in a very grateful way. That kind of kindness by people, and the UFC people, all of them, one after another, just all good at what they do, and all gentlemen, and the great women too, like Megan.
Levy.
Yeah, does a tremendous job, and then I did the post fight with John Anik, who is the best, you know. And again, not only at what he does, but at the way he handles himself as a man, as a person. He's a gentleman, and he even got one of these. You know, he went, you know, he was making me laugh because so I had to go after, because he did a podcast with us, obviously. And I had to go get one of those fight T-shirts, and I got them, you know. So it was great seeing all and the great Charlie Monahan, who does the directing there, and Cheyenne, who's his assistant, who is just, again, those people make a job not feel like a job. You know, and it's not a job. I mean, I'm talking fights, let's be honest. But there's a lot of harder stuff to do. But I've been in the fight business 50 years, so it shouldn't be that hard. But it's a lot easier when you have good people around you. And like, this is easier because I got you, and I got Rob. And it was just nice having you guys there at the, you know, at the Prudential Center with me, and knowing you were there. And it's just, and Dana said, you know what? He asked how the podcast's doing. I told him. I said, you know, how many subscribers? I said, I don't know, I think around 288,000. But I said, you know, I'd like to get to 1 million. And he said, we're gonna help you a little bit. We're gonna, I don't know, I think he said they're gonna put it up on their, what would that be?
Their platform,
their Facebook, whatever, the website, whatever. So I can't say how appreciative I am just of his kindness, you know, and his own humility, the way he conducts himself. Those things mean a lot to me.
The whole organization there, even Dave Lockett, who does PR, who helps us arrange the UFC guests,
I met him,
total
and he
gentleman.
Again, and I told him, I said, we appreciate you just being you know, not only good at what you do and obviously successful, but the kind of people you are. really
We've got
appreciate
some
all
special
of this.
gifts
And then
that are
one
going
of the
out to those guys.
one of the matchmakers came up to me.
Sean Shelby?
Yeah,
Nick Maynard?
yeah, it was a couple of them.
Yeah.
And the first thing I had to say was, man, I wish we had you in boxing. Yeah. Really, because you guys make real fights, competitive fights all the time, consistently, which we don't do in boxing, unfortunately. But it was a terrific night, and it was good having you there, and now we're together, so it's nice, and we got a lot to report on.
Oh, we got a lot, but we've got some beautiful gifts going out to Dana and some of the crew at UFC. Rob had some beautiful jackets made up. You've seen one of them. You have one that I think your son-in-law wears now. But yeah, those guys have been great. It's never lost, like you said, it's never lost on us how supportive they've been. And you know, without the fans and without the supportive guys at the UFC, we don't have the luxury of doing this. You know, there's like, we don't get to come to New York for free. There's expenses associated with all the stuff we do. So super happy to be affiliated with those guys in any informal or formal arrangement that they're comfortable with. And look, like you said earlier, this isn't really a job. Well, you don't get to do this if you didn't pay your dues over the last 50 years. That's what people don't see. The plumber shows up, fixes your sink, $200. I could have done that in 3 minutes. Yeah, but I've spent 20 years learning how to do this in 5 minutes. You could have spent, like, you know, the next 2 weeks trying to figure out how to do it. So
me, it would have been about a month. And then I would have called the plumber.
Exactly. To do $400 worth of work and undo what you've already fixed. Well, yeah, like you said, we have a ton of stuff to cover. There was some boxing action from Mexico, and obviously we were all at the UFC, big pay-per-view, Aljamain and Henry Cejudo. But let's jump right in. To me, the face of boxing was in action this weekend down in Mexico. Canelo Alvarez, John Ryder. You summarized it perfectly in your preview for the fight, in that John Ryder was made to order, made special delivery for his homecoming, right there to get cracked all night. It was interesting. I was telling Rob, Canelo got the one-sided decision, basically won every single round on one card, won 10 out of 12 on the other two scorecards. But it was interesting that Canelo dropped him, I think, around the middle of the fight. I forget, fifth round. Dropped him, sat him right down.
You know why he dropped him? Because he finally straightened the right hand out instead of looping it. He kept looping it, and I was like, maybe he's setting up the straight one, maybe. And I guess maybe he was. He kept looping it and catching him around. He tried to get him behind the ear, but he wasn't. He was catching him on the glove. And then I was saying to myself, when is he going to freaking throw it straight? And then fifth round, he throws it straight behind the jab. And, you know, right down Broadway, it lands on the chin. But
well, the last thing I wanted to say about that was it was interesting. After the fight, Ryder was at the press conference talking about the fight, and he said, Canelo, I think he's losing a step. He couldn't get me out of there. Now, as he's saying this, he's got his face all bandaged up. His face is a mess. His nose, he's got a towel dabbing the blood because his nose is still bleeding after, like, you know, an hour after the fight.
His nose bled all night.
I just thought it was interesting.
A lot of grit, a lot of heart.
Oh, a tough guy. I mean,
the Ryder, you know, you knew you were getting that. And you were getting a predictable, slow guy that's not a puncher, that, you know, you can hit. He's predictable. Like I said, he's right in front of you. You were getting that too, but a game, gritty guy.
Yeah, and with that said, Canelo gets the one-sided decision in Mexico. How'd you like the fight? Basically, I mean, you described in the setup, in the preview to this fight, you described exactly what would happen, and it was like literally on the screws, exactly as you described what would happen.
Yeah, and when we did our little thing with my bookie, I said, bet the over, you know, because a lot of people like the under. And it could have went under. But here's what I was betting on, what I was bargaining on. First of all, that they ordered what you know, the doctor would order to make you feel better, you know, if you're a fighter. And you're coming off a bad performance against an old, ancient Triple G. He came off a terrible performance, Canelo. He looked bad. He looked old. He looked like he's sliding. I don't care. I know you guys aren't mad at me saying that, are you? You great Mexican fans. I love yous, but you appreciate the truth. You know, the truth, like you're great fighters, throw that left hook to the liver. That's the truth. Well, there's other truths too. And the truth is that the man you love, I get it, and I appreciate that you back him and that you love him that way and you support him that way. But two things, And this is going to get, this probably get a few people's blood pressure up a little bit, Ken.
Not probably.
But it's early in the morning. We want to get the blood pressure up.
The hate will be flowing on Twitter, believe me.
But I stay consistent, and I stay with my facts from my career for almost 50 years of what I see and what I believe. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I base it on experience and what I've noticed. Canelo has always been overrated. Now, it doesn't mean he's not a real good fighter, but he's not the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. By the way, I apologize last week when I was putting my list up of great Mexican fighters, and it's a great list because you got so many great ones. And I put Julio, Cesar, Chavez, number one, mistakenly, and I don't know, just a brain fart, is that what they call it? Whatever, I'm getting old, I'm not gonna take an excuse, but I said Junior. I hope you knew that I meant,
I don't think anyone's going to mistake Junior for a best fighter ever. If it was April Fool's Day, it would have been perfect. April Fool. Yeah, but I said Junior, I meant Senior. So I hope, I apologize for making that just messing up that way for a second. But I meant Senior. I think you know that. He is not the greatest Mexican fighter. He's overrated. He probably lost to Lara. He lost twice to Triple G. I know it's old news, it's old history, but he lost the first two, especially the first one, to Trill. He lost to Mayweather every round, except for that judge that should be in jail, right? Only in boxing, unfortunately, that corruption can not only be there, but always be there. That judge never worked again.
Oh, the next day. The next day, in probably a premier spot.
In the
probably
Hall of
a prominent spot. But again, if you just look at his resume, it's not even close to the resume of your great Mexican warriors, fighters. There's so many of them. But that doesn't mean he's not a real good, solid fighter who didn't progress as the years went on. He did. He progressed. He got better and better, like a fine wine. But now, the reason why I picked the over in that fight, and I broke it down. I said, first of all, it's what the doctor ordered. I'm repeating myself, but it's better than an apple. It make you feel better. You got a gritty guy, but a slow guy, a predictable guy, a slow-footed guy, a plodding guy, a guy that's easy to find, and he can't punch. I mean, come on. And so it's perfect. And he's going to be there to make you work a little, so it's not going to be like you hit him one punch and he falls down. It's going to be somewhere you get something to say, yeah, I worked, I did something. The more he comes, the more you can hit him. And so it's productive in that way. His grittiness actually plays into it and helps you in that way, because that's a case where a guy being aggressive is his own worst enemy because he doesn't have a good defense. The only thing he had going right, besides his grit and his great heart, was he was a southpaw. But I even said that's not going to make a big difference because he's a squared-up southpaw. He's not a cutie. He's not a slickster, where he's hard to find. And sure enough, he was found. But the one thing that I prefaced was, I think it'll go the distance if Canelo has slid, which I think he has off of his last performance with Triple G. I think he's sliding back. He's getting long in the tooth. So I said, if he has, and I'm right, it's going to go longer. So we'll bet the over. Now, if he hadn't slid, and that's my exhibit A in his courtroom, that all you have to do is understand reasonably. Be reasonable with yourself, not just a fanatic, crazy fan, which is your right to be. But be a little reasonable. He gets rid of this guy 3 years ago. 4 years ago. Canelo doesn't take nothing away from Ryder. You got to love him, his heart, his fortitude. But he gets rid of him a few years ago. So just by going the distance with him sort of puts an exclamation point on my point. I mean, it confirms and validates my point that he has slid. And again, that's why I suggested if you're going to bet, you bet the over. But all night long. He found him with good left hooks to the body. Really, again, give him credit. His whole body was red. I mean, I don't know if that part of that was pain from the blood, because he was bleeding so much and it was on the gloves. Maybe that was part of it. But, man, he was hitting him vicious body shots. And we just saw, 2 weeks ago, a guy, get stopped on a body shot. He was eating, I'm not saying he hit him in the perfect spot, but he was hitting him good body shots. And he was catching them. Again, the southpaw killer I talk about, the right hand. He was catching right hands and body shots. That was mostly and pretty much what he wanted. But here's the deterioration in a nutshell of what I think and where he's at now as far as the tangible part to it. He throws one punch at a time, Canelo. He's in there with a guy who could have threw 3 or 4. He's throwing one punch at a time, and he's slower to close. He never was fast with his feet, but now he's even slower to close gaps. Where he's plodding a little bit, slower to get to you. Even with Kovalev, when he had to break him down, and Kovalev got broke down mentally, but when he broke him down with body shot and with pressure, he closed the gaps faster. That was only a few years ago, a couple years ago. He's slow to close the gaps. He's changed where he doesn't follow with that second volley. Like he hits you, he's satisfied. He doesn't put that second volley behind the first one that would get you out of there. He doesn't follow up. He doesn't close the show anymore, Canelo. He doesn't. And part of that is physical decline. It's the miles on the odometer. But part of it is mental decline, emotional decline, where he's made so much money, it's not as, I dare to say it, it's not as important. It's not quite as, maybe when he fights Benavidez, if he ever does in the next millennium, maybe it'll become that important. But these fights, his bank account is so big, the urgency's not there. You see, the urgency, and that's part of why he doesn't do the second volley. Why? Because to do the second volley that he used to do a few years ago, it invokes taking chances. And when you're that wealthy and that comfortable, you don't want to take as many chances.
Yeah.
It's the urgency to do it isn't there anymore. The reason to do it isn't there quite the same. There's very few people in this world, in this competitive world of anything, whether it's business, whether it's any sport, that are like a Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
That he always had to. He had to do his best. He had to find a way. He had to, and there's other guys like that. But there's not a million of them. Canelo has dissipated physically, and he's dissipated, as I just said, mentally and emotionally, where it's just not as big a deal to throw those extra punches, to go through that effort, that risk.
Not as much urgency.
No, and it was right there for the world to see, except for the people that wear those funny-looking glasses that they're called nutty fans. Those glasses that, like at the ball games, like you wear when you go to the Boston Blue. Your beautiful children wear those green glasses. You got different optics.
They're shaped like shamrocks.
Different optics. You see what you want to see. You see what you're there to see. You see your team, and they're great. And they're going to see their fighter, and he's great. But if he wants to be in that pantheon of great fighters, he's got to fight Benavidez, and he better do it sooner than later. But he's got to fight Benavidez. He can't keep fighting these guys. He has built his resume, and that's part of why I say he's not one of the great Mexicans. He has built his resume on beating guys like Ryder. A lot of them, not all, but a lot of those European fighters that are on his resume, Canelo's resume, are like Ryder at that same level of ability, which is not this level. Yep. And he's got plenty of those on his record, and other guys do too. But it doesn't allow him to be called the great when you have these Mexican fighters that have fought everybody. Yeah. And some of the great fighters they fought and the wars they fought, and the abilities they had. So if he's gonna get my attention anymore to watch a fight, he's got to go and fight a Benavidez. And I'll tell you right now, he'll have a big problem if he does this and puts the earmuffs on and just stands there for defensive purposes with Benavidez.
Oh yeah.
He got caught a couple of shots doing that. Uppercuts, he got hit. Canelo, it wasn't. Ryder found him.
Yeah.
Ryder was hitting him. He hit him with uppercuts. He hit him with a few hooks from the southpaw position. And if you're going to put the earmuffs on and you're going to stand stationary, and you got a guy that's a willing guy with talent, he's going to hit you.
Yeah.
And if he does that, I would say that'd be a no-no to do that with Benavidez, because he'll make you pay a much higher price than you paid Saturday night.
That's a good point.
Against Ryder.
For sure.
So I don't want to see these fights no more. And I'm not picking on just Canelo. I say that for, all of these top guys. I don't want to see them, playing, this musical chair stuff anymore. My grandkids play that. I don't want to see that. I want to see them in there with the top guys. I want to see Spence and Crawford with them, with the top guys. I want to see Fury with the top guy. I want to see the bigger Charlo brother with the top guy.
Yeah.
I want to see what's his name? Stevenson with a top guy.
Yeah.
I want to see, Tank's been fighting the top guys. I want to see that continually.
Yeah.
I don't want to see this other stuff.
Yeah. I'm with you. What do you think with Bivol?
And by the way, you said the face of boxing, Canelo. I got you. But some would argue Fury is the face of boxing too.
That's
because
fair. But I
through
would
the history
describe
of this
those
sport,
two.
it's always
The
been
heavyweight division
attached to the heavyweights.
Yeah, I agree. I just, when Tank won the fight, they were all saying Tank's the new face. I'd still say Canelo is like ahead of Tank in terms of being a draw.
Tank's a hell of a fighter.
Agreed.
I don't love the things we hear about him. And I'm always going to tell you how I feel that I hear about him from his personal, but that's his personal life. I don't pretend to know any more about it than is put out there for the average person to hear. So, I don't know him as a human being, as a person. So I'm not going to go heavy down that road, but I will be true to myself and say, some of this stuff I hear, I don't like I don't agree or like hearing it, but again, that's his personal life. He wouldn't be the first guy that's been good in his business that I didn't like some of the things I heard at times, quite frankly, but he's a hell of a fighter, and more than just a puncher.
Yeah.
He's a complete freaking fighter, mentally, technically, every way.
Yeah.
He can go get you. He can put punches together. He can counter punch. He can control you on the outside. He takes his time getting to you. He's patient. Like I said, he's mentally solid. He's cerebral. He can punch like hell. But, he doesn't rely only on that.
Yeah.
He has these other skills.
What do you think? Bivol says, I don't want Canelo at 75. I already beat him there convincingly. If he wants to fight me again, I'll come down and fight him for all his belts at 168.
Because he probably don't have a choice.
Right, but I think Bivol, I get the impression listening to Bivol that he's like, hey, I don't need you anymore. I've already beaten you. If you want me, I'll come down and take all your belts at 168.
Yeah,
I want to fight for all your
belts.
But I don't know if it's really
that. I hear you, maybe, but I get it, but I think maybe he doesn't get, it's still the biggest payday is Canelo, so he probably doesn't get that. Canelo's people have probably made that, a demand, a must that he has to come down to give Canelo a better opportunity.
No, I get the impression Canelo's saying, I'll fight you again at 75, and Bivol saying, no, I'll come fight you for all your belts at 68.
I believe that when I really hear it, when they
Bivol tweeted
he tweeted it.
Bivol tweeted, I want you at your weight. I don't want any excuses. I come to you.
Did we hear did we hear from true
and Canelo has
sources
said, I want him at 75.
I want him at 175.
Yes.
I give credit to Canelo then for saying that because that's what I want.
Yeah.
I give him credit. He got beat there. Let him win the rematch there. At that, not at a lower weight class.
But I can also side with Bivol and say, I already beat you convincingly. Let me come fight you for all your belts, and I'll be the undisputed.
Make it more of a challenge.
Yeah.
And then grab those belts.
That's it. That's a lot of belts.
And he's being smart because in that way, I tell you how he's being smart in a marketing sense, getting people's attention. Because as good as Bivol is, he's not known out there. You know, he's not a real marketable guy. He's not a guy making a big money.
That's why it got my attention.
He doesn't
that
have
he said that on Twitter.
He doesn't have the sizzle to go with the steak.
Yep.
The steak is there, but he don't have the sizzle with it. So that's pretty good maneuver, marketing-wise, to get more money and to get people's attention and, you know, to put them in a different light.
And hypothetically, if he went down and lost a close one, now he can get a third payday at whatever weight class, 1-on-1.
He doesn't want to lose, though.
Yeah.
You want to keep that O.
Of course.
You know, you want to know how important that O is? Just ask Mayweather. He's still cashing in on it.
That's for sure. Well, listen, another guy who was protecting his O this weekend, Julio Cesar Martinez, was in the co-main against Ronal Batista. An interesting fight there. Martinez was a massive favorite, and I think around the 7th round, pretty even fight going into by all accounts, going into the 7th round. But on the scorecards, he was way ahead, as you would expect in Mexico. And there was a knockdown in the 7th round. I believe it was the 7th round. And Batista gets knocked down, but the ref rules it's not a knockdown. He just didn't see it. Fair enough. Jose Sulaiman, the head of the WBC, goes over, looks at a replay, goes over to the ref, consults with the judges in the middle of the fight. Now, at the time, they don't have a replay system in place. There's no procedure or protocols. Let's go to the replay. If you do, no problem. But they don't have it.
I like using the replay.
I agree with you. But if there's no system in place, you were just going to make up the rules as we go? I like a replays for a lot of sports that they don't allow replays.
But there was a replay, though, right? I mean, they did.
So they go to the replay. Jose Sulaiman gets everyone's attention, and they go back and they rule a knockdown. There's no mechanism to use a replay in Mexico under the sanctioning body that sanctioned the fight.
But he decided to use it.
The sanctioning,
to create it.
The governing body, the WBC, the head of the WBC, decides it's a knockdown.
What is he?
What
is he, for people who know,
he's the president of the WBC.
The dictator of the I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So he goes over and just the rules at a knockdown, and sure enough, the ref, the judges, they all change it. Yep, knockdown, okay, and it was a knockdown.
Yeah, it was. It was the right call.
100%. But if you don't have, how many times have you seen in sports, the ref makes a mistake, but that's not reviewable under the current rules?
Shouldn't that be the job of the ref, or a commission or something of that nature set up by a committee that's? Wouldn't this be nice? That's actually non-biased and non-conflicted. Because here's the point Ken's getting at, and he's so right, that it was the right thing. Good, beautiful. But Sulaiman, it's not his job. It's not his place to do that. And here's where the danger lies, big danger. But how much more dangerous can boxing get, because it's so freaking full of holes? It's like Swiss cheese when it comes to credibility. And, people pointing that finger of corruption at it. This is why. How does he get to just make that decision when you talk about conflict of interest? He's the president of the rating organization that happens to have Martinez as their champion. That means they get a sanctioning fee from him. And he's from Mexico, where Sulaiman's from. And the fight's in Mexico. So Sulaiman goes and makes sure that his champion, the WBC champion, is going to get credit for the knockdown. And again, it's the right thing. But where's his place? That is dangerous, that he can just go and do that. I would have trouble, Ken. Help me if you think I'm wrong here, but do you think the other fighter was, I think, from Panama? Was it Panama? I forget where it was. Batista.
Yeah.
I forget where it was from, but it was in Mexico. Rob's going to check. I think it was Panama. But wherever, It was in Mexico. I got a funny feeling if the reverse happened, that he doesn't go to instant replay to correct it.
There is no replay. How could he?
Well, you're not allowed to. You got to go by the rules. You got to go. Listen, the one thing I made a point to make a little bit of a note to myself that I wanted to make an analogy just to make it even clearer if we didn't already make it clear enough, how wrong this is for the reasons that it's wrong. Where, can you just imagine that would be like the head of, say, a marketing company who represents your boy, Tom Brady, making a decision on a controversial play involving Brady in the Super Bowl? No, seriously.
Yeah, it's
I think it's a good analogy.
The whole thing is laughable.
Laughable. No, and dangerous. But no. Because football would lose its credibility instantly. I mean, it would be shot. It would be gone. And there's things in place to make sure that doesn't happen. The right people are there. They're called referees. They're there to make that call.
Yeah.
Not the head of marketing.
Even the referee have some integrity and be like, back off, dude. I'm in charge of this fight. I've been assigned to referee this fight. Usually, a strong referee like a Mills Lane takes control and is like, you get out of here. You can't interfere with the fight.
Can you imagine in any other sport it would just? Can you imagine, guys? Hey, you guys. Can you imagine? It would wreck the credibility of this entire business, the entire brand, the entire sport. Oh, I forgot. It's already been wrecked in boxing. It's already been demolished like a freaking wrecking ball taking down a building. It's a shame. It really is. It's a sport I put 50 years into. I love. But, man, when's it ever going to get clean? And I want to thank a guy who is clean. There are clean people out there that been involved. He used to be involved with the commission. He's a great lawyer. He works for pro bono for my foundation. You met him, Keith Sullivan.
Yeah.
Great man, great person. And he worked for the commission. He represents a lot of fighters, does a great job. Obviously, I wouldn't be talking about him if I didn't think he did. And like I said, he works for the foundation pro bono, helping us help people that are in dire need quite often. He brought it to my attention. And he's in the middle of a lot of stuff going on in his life. But he hit me up. He said, Teddy, just another, like the late great, he was a friend of mine, I miss him, Bert Sugar, with the cigar and the hat, Like he used to say, boxing has so many black eyes, it's now the Cyclops. There's no more eyes to blacken. And see, when I reference somebody else's ideas and thoughts, I actually give them credit.
Well, what an awful idea.
I actually give them credit, where not everyone does that. I hear stuff sometimes on the tape. I said, that sounds like, is that an old tape of mine? Oh, that's not me.
Nope.
I'm sorry. I'm being thin-skinned for a second. I'm sorry. I got to be better than that.
Batista's from Panama.
Yeah,
Batista. Did I have it right? Panama? So Batista, great producer, Rob, we want to be accurate here. Not like I was last week when I said Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was the #1 Mexican. It was Senior, but Rob made sure that I was right. Barista's from Panama. So Barista could have scored 22 knockdowns, and they weren't getting scored if they were missed.
Yep. Well, one sport where they're definitely not going to change the rules on the fly is the UFC. And like we discussed, we were all at the fight. You were sitting ringside with the president, Dana White. Awesome event per usual. The fans were incredible. It was so nice. And it was nice to be out there sitting with my man Rob. We don't get to spend as much time together with him in LA and me in Nashville now, but it was awesome for the whole team to be together there. And like I said, the fans were incredible. But let's jump right into it. One of the early fights on the main card, we had the Dagestani wrestler, Monsar Evloev, was in with Diego Lopes. And my God, when Evloev
Incredible.
was announced, Rob looked at me and he goes, "Holy cow! Look at the line." He was like, I forget if it was like minus $900.
Well, he took the fight on 5 days' notice. This is what makes it extraordinary. He took the fight. His opponent. I'm sorry,
Lopes.
Yeah,
Lopes. Diego Lopes. Yeah,
Lopes took the fight on 5 days' notice, and the fighter Mozart, he's rated number 10.
Yeah.
So this is a high quality guy.
It was unbelievable. What a fight. I mean, Lopes was like all over him like a cheap suit. He had him in submissions at the fight. Was it the end of the fight when he had him in the leg lock?
All I want to say, you keep going, but I'm just going to say, Lopes' picture and name should be in Webster's dictionary for toughness.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, I don't mean to say Lopes. I meant to say the winner.
Oh,
Evloev should be in there because he just refused. We talk about that about life.
Lopes had him in that leg lock. His leg was hyperextended. He had him in every submission.
I thought he was going to break his arm, break his leg.
Yeah.
And you know what? How do you pronounce it? Evloev?
Evloev, I think is how you say it, but we didn't hear the broadcast. So
I was saying Mozart because that's his first name.
Mozart, yeah.
Mozart, really, he should be in the Webster's dictionary for just toughness and resolve and all those intangible things about what makes somebody really special, where somebody else will give in. And he just refuses to.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that word. It's not in his vocabulary. He was going to let his arm get broke.
No,
I thought he was going to go. I was like, oh, phew. And even Dana was like, oh.
I think when he had him in the Kimura, when he had his arm locked behind his back. It was. He had him in a couple submissions that were tight.
And that's why he's where he is, and that's why he's number 10 because of that kind of mentality. I talk about the mental strength. I mean, it was on full exhibit there with him, and he was again. He just, by all intents and purposes, if there's a reason to submit, he should have been submitting. But there is no reason if you don't allow there to be a reason in life to submit. There's just, and he wouldn't allow it.
Yeah.
It was not part of the place he was willing to go.
Yep.
To go to a place and say, no, there's no more light, it's only dark. No, I'm going to keep going until the light gets back on. But there's no light, it's all dark. I don't care. There's light somewhere. Where's the light? Where's the light? I'll tell you where it is. Here. It's in me. And as long as it don't get dark in me, there ain't no turning it out. I believe.
Yeah.
I have committed to this. And that, I'm telling you, that was unbelievable. That was a clinic. That was a clinic he gave us. Again, it made me, I used the word earlier, it made me feel humbled to be in their presence. A clinic of behavior. Of chosen behavior. You see people complain about things. Oh, my finger. And then you see this guy. Whoa! I mean, you talk about a wake up a little bit, like, hey, guy, get a hold of yourself. Stop freaking feeling sorry. Stop crumbling every time something. I'm not saying there's not tough things out there in life that hit us, but get yourself together.
Yeah.
Remember, and I said this last week when we give these little life lessons. Remember, the greatest power you have. And I didn't know this fight was going to happen, but it's perfect on the heels of what I said last week. The greatest power that we have is the power to make a choice.
Yeah.
A choice of how we're going to behave. No matter how bad it is, it's still our choice. It's not taken away by him or by the event, by the sky, by the moment. It's your choice to give away.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't give it away. It was that simple. That really. I know I'm simplifying it, but it is.
Yeah.
And boy, that was extraordinary. And then back to Lopes. How extraordinary was he? Where he takes the fight on 5 days freaking notice.
Yeah.
Right? With this monster, with a number 10 rated guy. Lopes takes opportunity, he jumps on it.
Yep.
He goes there, that's what they do. That's next up. That's what they do in Dana White's business. And he goes in there And you just said it, Ken. He's got him in an arm hold. He's got him in a leg hold. I mean, he's breaking. He's breaking a. I was like thinking, oh, remember that song? The shin bone's connected to the ankle bone. The ankle bone's connected to the leg bone. And I'm like, which bone is getting broke? And he is good in jiu-jitsu. I mean, it reminds me of our friend, Dustin Poirier, who might have a big fight coming up in July, right? We'll see. With Gagey, maybe. Yeah. But what a fight. But he's always in great fights. But it reminded me of him when after he beat Chandler, right? He goes, I know jiu-jitsu. That was really cool. Exactly. I know jiu-jitsu. And that's what this guy Lopes should be. I know jiu-jitsu. He knows jiu-jitsu.
He was in there with a wrestling powerhouse, and I loved at the end when Monsar called out the great Bo Nichols. I mean, Bo Nichols is a young guy, not a lot of experience but in the UFC. But
he's only got a few fights, but this is a guy who's already a legend. I mean, from where he's coming from in the wrestling pedigree, right? He's
a superstar, and he's looks unbelievable in the cage. I mean, what a hell of a fight that is.
And I want to touch this with some, that I'm sitting with Dana, and Lopes comes over and reminds Dana, 5 days, and he goes, I know, congratulations, you were great, gives him what you would expect, someone to give him compliments, you were great, compliments both of them, but Lopes in particular, you were great, unbelievable, tremendous, and the guy was very humble. These tough guys, they're the real deal. They're humble. He went like this. He said, thank you, Dana. He goes, no, thank you. Yeah. And I was seeing that side of Dana. What do you think he did? What you might not expect, but you would maybe hope for, that a person of his power, his position, can do if he chooses to. He said, excuse me, Teddy, I'll be right back. He gets up and he walks over to the guy when he's getting out of the octagon, and he takes him aside. Dana did. See those things you don't see, on the cameras. And he takes him aside and says, you were great. Appreciate what you did, 5 days. You were great. And tell me when you're ready. We're going to get you back in another top card. We'll get you back in another good spot.
I meant to ask you that. Did any of the other fighters say anything from the cage to Dana that was surprising to you? Did they all come over and talk to him?
Yeah, they all would come and acknowledge for the most part, and I think we're going to talk about it next. I'm trying to remember. I think the woman, which was pretty extraordinary.
Let's jump into it. Unless you got anything else on it. No. Let's jump into the women's fight because it was exciting. Jessica Andrade in there against...
And Rob's going to put up a replay of this knockdown, which last time we did this with the Adesanya fight.
That's right.
Where we kind of like the anatomy of... what not to do in the ring.
Anatomy of a knockout.
Yeah, and the anatomy of a knockout and why it happens, obviously. Yeah. He put it up brilliantly in our last with Adesanya episode, and then put it up separately. Yeah. And it got hundreds of thousands of views. So.
Yeah. So Jessica Andrade in tough against Yan Xiaonan. We'll call her Jan. And
easy for you to say.
Stand-up battle. Jessica Andrade, excellent on the ground, but stand-up fight for while it lasted. And as soon as it happened, I said to Rob, I said, watch this. Teddy's over there telling Dana, look at how he catches how one fighter catches the other fighter. Jan catches Andrade coming in. So as she's moving in, she catches her with a beautiful shot and knocks her out. Ends it quickly, like beautiful shot. What'd you see? How'd you like
it?
That
doesn't make you amazing, Kreskin.
I know.
You're right on the button.
What were you describing to Dana before it happened? And what'd you think of the knockout?
I said to Dana, it wasn't hard to say from my perspective, where I said, that's what happens when you lead with left hooks in front of somebody. And that's a big no-no for me in the teaching realm. I'm a teacher. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to be as a trainer. Not just a guy that says, go do 5 there, 6 there, 7 there, I'll get a cup of coffee. I'm supposed to show you how to do it and correct you when it's wrong. I've had a career of driving fighters crazy. They don't like it, but I'll jump in the ring. I'll jump in the ring and stop the sparring if they lead with a left hook and they're like, but Teddy, I didn't get hit. You're gonna get hit. Let's not wait till that happens. You can't break this rule. That's a no-no. That's taboo for me. You know, there's a lot of them, but this is a main one. Leading with a left hook, come on. Didn't you go to any geometry classes where straight beats round? You lead with a left hook in front of someone, a straight right hand can beat it if they're not afraid to throw it, if they have timing to throw it. And guess what? Jan, I want to get the name, I'll just say Jan. Jan had the timing and the wherewithal to know when to throw it. And again, I marked down here 4 things that were on display from a technical point of view, a teaching point of view. Number 1, reckless aggression by Andrade. We love aggression, but reckless. You know, you got to be effective aggressively. Counterpunching by Jan. Number 3, that was number 2. When you lead, as I always say, but I just said, giant no-no, leading with left hooks in front, your opponent, you leave a pathway to counter right hands. And you leave a hole, simply put, a space, and the space is going to get filled maybe. And then number 4, I always say, and I've said this on this show so many times, because just to drive this into my head, that when you have 2 tough fighters, it's a prerequisite to be tough. It's supposed to be tough. There's different levels of it, but you're supposed to be tough. When you have 2 tough fighters, and obviously both these women are tough, and one is smarter, one is more cerebral, one is technically, more together, more developed, they automatically become twice as tough. Yeah. And they win. Usually they win because of that. And again, you appreciate the toughness of Andrade and aggressive, wanting to get to you, but you have to do it in a more controlled manner. And that's the one thing about Tank Davis. He's aggressive, but slowly and gradually. You know, he's not reckless like, probably Ryan Garcia was looking for him to be reckless, have space to counter him. He wasn't going to give him that. He was. Do you remember the Three Stooges? One of my. I'm going back. I'm dating myself. But
Larry and Curly.
Yeah, they were great. And remember one of them. I think it was Curly. It was. And then there was an episode where the guy says this trigger word, and when he says the trigger word, he goes into something from his memory, and he goes, Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls. Slowly I turn, step by step, inch by inch, and then he starts beating the crap out of Curly or whoever it was, and and Curly's going, like that's Tank Davis, and that's a lot of these top fighters that are patient enough in an impatient place, in a calm and an uncalm environment where they can inch their way, inch by inch, step by step. Niagara Falls, and I appreciate that. I recognize it, that it's not recklessness. And Jan, to her credit, she had this, she had the vision, and she was able to stay calm and see things in an uncalm environment, and knew that she'd get an opportunity to land that right hand. Yeah. And quite frankly, Andre didn't give her 1 chance. She didn't give her 2 chances. She gave her 3. Yep. She was like 3 left hooks in a row. Like, she figured she had her going backwards. Yeah. So she's like 1, 2, and then the third one, bang! The right hand, gets right in that space and catches. And another problem when you get caught that way, you don't see it. Yep. And it has a more profound effect, obviously, on you. But that's another thing, credit to Jan, because she kind of set up Andrade, where Andrade probably figures she's going backwards, she's not set to punch. Yeah. But she did set her foot. Yep. She set her right foot and bang.
She definitely set it up. Yeah, no, that's great. If you've got nothing else on that, I want to talk about the co-main. But before I do, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsors, Athletic Greens. They've been with us from the jump. As I say every week, I take this stuff with me everywhere I go. Obviously, I had it here in New York. If you go to athleticgreens.com, use the promo code ATLAS, ATLAS, you'll get 10 free travel packs with your first purchase. I love this stuff. 75 whole food source ingredients. It's basically a drinkable daily vitamin, all made from real foods. So even when you're traveling, you're making sure, even if you're eating the healthiest diet, make sure you're getting all your vitamins, nutrients, and minerals. Go to athleticgreens.com/Atlas to take advantage of the opportunity.
And I want to add one thing. Subscribe, please. You want us to keep, a lot of you, we appreciate the heck out of you, how you say that, even at the Prudential Center, I tell you, you guys touch me. You'd say, reach out, saying things that I don't even deserve. But, you know, like Teddy, like, thanks. You know, thanks for coming to MMA. Thanks for bringing Ken with you. You know, thanks for, you know, what you've done in boxing, whatever. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Sometimes that's more important than anything, to be quite honest. But if we're going to keep doing this, subscribe. Subscribe.
Yep.
Subscribe. We're at 288,000 subscribers, or maybe 289 now, whatever it is. But we want 1 million.
Yep.
Please subscribe.
Let's do it. Let's get into the
coin. What is that called? VCR, DCR, VCR,
VCR?
I know where I hear people that always asking people, so they say, if you can't watch it, then set your DVR.
Oh no, like and subscribe, and they get an announcement that it's published. So if you subscribe, you get a notification that the episode's up.
Caveman. Caveman, just in case you forgot. Caveman over here.
For the younger crowd, a VCR is an old-fashioned tape recorder. We'll talk about that another time.
They're not around no more?
No. They went out with the Blu-ray.
Blu-ray ain't around no more? All right, you got me. All right, go. I'm depressed.
All right. Belal Muhammad in with Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns on a 4-week turnaround after fighting Jorge Masvidal.
We did say
Belal.
Yeah, we picked Muhammad, and I did a show Saturday. Charlie set it up with ABC.
Yep.
In my house.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, actually, a pre-fight show for the show that night.
Yeah.
Where I did it with Brian Custer.
Brian Custer,
He was great.
Yeah.
He was great. And so I did it with him from my house again. And I said, and Brian Custer, I was busting his chops. He asked me, who's going to win? I was like, oh, you got to ask me this one? Because I love Burns, and Burns is hard to go against, you know? But I picked Muhammad, and part of the reason I picked Muhammad was something that could be a positive but could be a negative. And I said, you know what, I think it might be a negative for Burns, who's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. And for him to take the fight on 28 days notice, off a tough fight, off a tough 3 5-minute rounds. That's
5
tough.
3-minute rounds.
5. Yeah. So
wasn't it a 5 fight with
the fight before that?
Was it a main event?
Yeah.
We'll check.
But whatever it was, to take the fight 28 days later in this business where they're nothing but tough fights, it's very hard to regulate your training for that short period to get it right.
Yeah.
No, it really is to give the right rest. And one other thing, you're probably dinged up. You're probably like playing a football game, you know.
I mean, just going through a training camp and then another 4 weeks of training to get ready, you're going to be dinged up.
And then that fight, you're banged up somehow. And so you're going in there without your body, whatever you're banged up for, you're not able, your body's not able to have the proper time to recuperate, you know. And it kind of showed.
Oh, it was 3 5-minute rounds. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought it was a main event. Usually when they're in the main event, but yeah, my bad.
So, anyway, it was a very interesting, weird kind of flow to the fight.
Yes.
But interesting, but weird, right? Did you feel that?
Yeah, the fans were not happy with it. They were booing. I don't know.
A very efficient fight plan by Belal, but not exciting, not electric, but efficient and thought out, planned out, premeditated. And it got him, you know, a pretty convincing win.
Yeah.
But I also, taking nothing away from Belal, I also think that Burns there was something wrong with his shoulder.
Yeah, something was wrong with his left arm. He stopped using it.
There was something wrong with that. John Anik told me afterwards there was something, we don't know to what extreme, to what extent. But again, it goes to what I'm saying. You take a fight on that quick notice, coming off just 28 days rest in this business, you're liable to have something wrong.
Yeah, and it'd be hard not to.
Yeah, so I'm taking nothing away again from Muhammad. He did what he had to do, but you could see he was bothered with his left shoulder, but he was also bothered, and this is where we got to give credit to Muhammad. He was bothered with Muhammad's strategy. Muhammad switching back and forth. He switched back, but I was getting dizzy. I mean, really. And what it was doing, it was making me dizzy, switching from lefty to righty. But more importantly than what it did to me and the optics for the fans was what it was doing to his opponent.
Yeah.
I think it was making him think too much.
That's right. That's the way I saw it too. I was like, man, he's got to let his hands go or something. He's going to lose this fight.
And maybe who knows how much had to do, but he still had another good arm.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was making him, I just think that it was making him hesitant. It was making him hesitant where you can't be hesitant. Yeah. And making him think where you should do instead of just thinking. And so I thought it was pretty much a brilliant strategy. I kept him off balance doing that. I tweeted with my great team, all those guys, they're tremendous, that he was like a little bit, he reminded me, Muhammad, of taking the strategy of the waves in the ocean, where the waves will move the log, this way, that way, never let the log get to where it wants to. That's kind of the way it felt and was with Burns. Burns was the log, and he wasn't letting the log get to shore, because the log wants to get to shore, but he wasn't letting it get there. So, again, not exciting, but another reason I picked Muhammad that he needs credit for is he was on an 8-fight win streak. Now it's 9. He had 1 no contest with Edwards, who's the champion, who's our guy too, comes on our, and we're very proud of. We're proud of all of them, and glad to have any of them on our air, because of the warriors, the samurais that they are, the people they are, the way they represent themselves, conduct themselves in all ways. I mean, the ones we've seen. Yeah. But he was on an 8-fight win streak. And you know what? That means something in the UFC. Oh, yeah. In boxing, it don't sometimes, quite frankly. I hate to say it, it's my business. But sometimes it don't. Because boxing is kind of like going to a Chinese restaurant sometimes. You get those menus, they're huge. They're huge. And you got a column A, a column B. Rob. You got a column A, he loves Chinese. You got a column A, a column B, and a column C. And it's like, I'll take one from A, one from B, one from, and you can get these dumplings, soft dumplings, right? Yeah. Guess what? Boxing does that. They give you all these choices of opponents that you can get soft dumplings. You can choose whatever you want. No, you can to build up and to get easy 8 wins. You could get 28 wins with that. There is no Chinese menu in UFC. It's a very short menu, and guess what's not on it?
Dumplings.
Dumplings! There's no dumplings. No dumplings on the menu. So when I'm told that Burns has an 8-fight win streak, that tells me he's damn good. He's beaten good fighters. He's damn good, which I already know. I've seen him. But I mean, it verifies that how solid he is. And one other thing, it tells me he's in a good place mentally. Yeah. And I didn't know if Burns could be counted on coming off 28 days that way, that I just expressed. So that was enough for me to pick a very hard fight to pick. Yeah. But that was enough for me, to go that way. And again, kept him off stride. He never allowed, and again, I don't know how much was the injury, but he never allowed Burns to get a rhythm. you got to get a rhythm. You got to get a rhythm in your marathon races, don't you? I mean,
For sure.
You're praying to get that rhythm.
That's right.
And it clicks in. And
it's funny you say that, because some days you get it, and other days, like at the New York City Marathon that I've talked about, is just like I never got it. I mean, and I struggled, and it wasn't the best time, but that was one of the races that I was most proud of, because I was like, I did not feel good the entire day.
Those
From the first mile, I was like, come on.
Yeah, but those are the ones where you're tested in those deeper ways.
That's right.
Where you would call yourself a real pro. For me, that's the definition. Customano always drummed that also into my head. He drummed a lot into my head. But he would always say, the real recognition of a pro is somebody, it's not someone who gets paid, has a license, and says he's a pro. It's somebody who can perform at the highest level, emotionally, physically, technically, no matter what's going on in their life, and no matter how they feel.
That's right.
That they can find a way. They can wake up sick.
Yeah.
And still go to the office, still go to the courtroom, still go to the race, still go to the pitcher's mound. How many times you heard about a pitcher or I remember a fighter. Vinny Pazienza, one of my favorite guys, the Tasmanian Devil. He was fighting Greg Haugen for the lightweight title. I'm going back a lot of years, and I was friends with the Duvers, with Lou and them, and Dan, all of them. And I remember Pazienza had a virus, a stomach virus. You don't want that ever, but you don't want that when you're fighting for the world title, your first world title. And I think it was 135 pounds. And he had a diarrhea, so you know what goes with that stuff. And I mean, you talk about something that weakens you, something that debilitates you.
Dehydration.
And he had no choice. You have a choice. The fight's here. We didn't plan on this happening, but it happened. Are you going to behave like a pro? Are you going to go get your title or no? You know, and he went and got it with that. So
part of that goes with, that's why you get up and you, with at least with running, is why you run when it's raining and snowing, because what if that happens on race day? No one wants to do it. I don't want to go out and run when it's cold and raining, but if it does rain and it is snowing and it's cold on race day, I know I'm ready for it, and I've convinced myself that no one else is, whether it's true or not. So, yeah, to your point, being a pro means you have to show up, hey, this is race day. Never mind how you feel. Just get out there and do what you do. But let's jump into the main event, because you summarized that co-main perfectly. In the main event, Aljamain Sterling retains his title against the great Henry Cejudo, the triple champ, Olympic gold medalist.
We're always transparent. Just took credit for being right about picking Muhammad. I was wrong. I picked Cejudo. But I'll let you take us the rest of the way, and then I'll get more to it. But I thought Cejudo won. And no, you can't go crazy either way.
Split decision.
Can't go crazy either way. But I didn't get the winner. I picked Cejudo. So that one I didn't pick the right guy. Go ahead.
Like you said, very tight fight. Split decision goes to Aljamain Sterling. All stand up. Very, very little. I expected to see more ground action. Henry Cejudo's an Olympic gold medalist.
But Sterling's really good on the mat too.
Gold medalist means you're the best in the world. So I expected to see some of it, but man, they were at a stalemate.
Sterling is so phically strong.
Wow. Did you see when he went for a takedown at one point on Cejudo? And Cejudo sprawled. He did a full split to keep Aljamain's arms from getting together on the double leg. It was incredible. I mean, the athleticism on display, the physiques on these guys. They were both like little fire hydrants of muscle.
Sterling's so big, though.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so much more muscle. What a fight. But yeah, very technical, strategic fight. At times I felt like neither one of them, like we talk about aggression, there was no reckless aggression in this fight. It was
couldn't be
strategic.
Because you're being a problem real fast if you're reckless.
Yeah, so Aljamain retains the title, split decision. What'd you think? What were your takeaways? I know you thought that Cejudo won a close decision.
Yeah.
What Dana think? Did he tell you when the fight was going?
No, I was in the back for that fight.
Oh, okay.
Because I was working. At that point, I went in the back, and then I got ready right after to go on the air with John Anik, and then with Megan. And then some of the other guys.
I got a question before let me take a second. Kron Gracie fought in the opening of the main card. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I was telling Rob.
But he's all Matt. I mean, that's it.
But in the UFC, I was saying to Rob, I've not seen in a long time where a guy comes to the UFC and has one trick. It's on. You can't do it. Pony. And we saw that. What was Dana's reaction? Because the crowd was not happy.
We didn't talk about. But
okay. All right, then we can skip that.
Yeah, but it's a good question though to bring that out. I watched that, and I was still in the back getting ready for the show, so I watched the first fight on the TV there, and before I went out in the ringside with Dana. And I thought the same thing. I said, wow, this guy's all Matt. He's all jiu-jitsu. He's all Gracie. That's what they're famous for, obviously. But it's a different time than it was 30 years ago in the infancy of UFC, where you could get away with that. Now you got to be able to be a little more rounded.
I've not seen someone in the UFC pull guard, meaning like jumped out and purposely pulled the guy on top of him. I haven't seen that in ages. That's a jiu-jitsu move.
You can see he was so anxious to get him to the floor that he was even exposing himself.
He was getting punched. Yeah. He was getting pieced up. I said to Rob at one point, I said, geez, I'm no boxing trainer, but move your head just a little bit. He was just...
No, one trick pony.
The guy was just lighting him up.
Oh, you're right. But and that even brings more attention, light, and really appreciation and credit to these guys we just talked about in the co-feature in the main, how well-rounded they are.
That's right. Everyone in the UFC is so well-rounded. It shows you could be the best jiu-jitsu man in the world. If you can't punch and stand with someone and that's all you're going to depend on, you can't win at this level with just one trick. You can't be just a striker, and you can't be. So in the main, how'd you like it? Let's get back to that one.
Yeah, well, Sterling is big and he's strong, as I just said. Physical, and he's long, and he uses his striking, the length of his striking, and the length, not only the length advantage with his punching, but with his kicks. He uses that advantage pretty well.
Yeah. The kicking was unbelievable. I mean, both of them.
But I thought that, all the rounds were close.
Very.
For the most part. They were very hard to decipher. You could, but it was close. You could make arguments in some of them either way. And some of them, they were won at the very last seconds. I thought each one of them might have won a round. I forget which one it was. I think I made a note, but and I'll look at it. But each one of them might have won a round or stole a round. Yeah. Kind of like Sugar Ray Leonard did against Marvin Hagler. Yeah. The last minute. But in this case, it might have been the last 20 seconds, where with a takedown or with something dramatic, where bang, close round, he won it. He might have won it with the last 20 seconds. They each had a round like that, I believe. And for me, first of all, how extraordinary you're coming off 3 years off, retired. Now, John Jones showed us that, it's not impossible, that it doesn't have to be a negative. Now, I don't know how much it impacted Cejudo. We'll say it had to impact him a little, but it didn't show. He didn't look like a guy that was off 3 years. No. It didn't show. I'm sure it did a little, but it didn't show. I have an argument, the other side of the coin, to say that maybe it helped him. Because here's a guy who was a champion at multiple weight classes, great UFC champion, and he retires, and he said, he had talked about it, that he was burnt out, that he felt burnt out, and he needed a reprieve. He retired for a reason. He felt burnt out. In his case, I think he got revitalized by the time off. Yeah. I think that the time off rejuvenated him.
Yeah, well, he's been very active in the coaching. He's been in the gym for sure.
Mentally more than physically, where there was never nothing wrong with him physically, but mentally he was starting to deteriorate, according to his own words. Yeah. And you could see that he was refreshed by the time off. And he was coaching, gave him a different perspective where he was coaching during that time. So he was staying active. His body, it's not like his body was going to hell. Mm-hmm. You know, he was still staying in the domain of you know, good habits and, you know, being fit. So I didn't see any negative component to his being off, even though there might have been. And I saw him doing what he had to do. He was out physical by this guy with how strong he is and how long he is, but he was using his championship experience to make it a close fight. He used his experience, and he was testing Sterling in different areas. And I thought that as much as Sterling, they're both good, well-rounded, I thought that Sterling probably had maybe a little edge on the mat. I thought, and it was very close, but I thought Cejudo had an edge striking. Maybe slight, but he had a little edge. And I thought where he got that edge striking was he started closing the gaps really well, and safely, which is hard to do with a guy like Sterling, yeah. Long and, you know, and strong and tall and so big, where his range is longer than yours. He can catch you while you're there, and you can't catch him till you're here. Cejudo did a good job getting him into positions where he closed the gap the right way, where in spots where he forced Sterling backwards, where he wasn't set, and he could catch him going back. And I thought he made the most of those spots. There wasn't a lot because there wasn't a lot on either side to differentiate from. Neither side was given a lot. These guys were like, you know, like they say, Eskimos in the winter. They weren't giving away ice. You know, they don't give away nothing. Yeah. And you got to earn it. You got to take it. Yeah. And you got to be careful. You got to know what the frig you're doing earning it at this level with these talents, because it's dangerous footing in there if you make a mistake.
That's for sure.
So I thought Cejudo, it was real close. I had it as tight as you could be going into the fifth. And I thought Cejudo took the fifth. Yeah. So for me, I tweeted out, whoever takes this fifth, for me, I know that, listen, the guys at ringside, Rogan, DC, all these guys, I mean, they're great, Anik, but these guys are the experts. I will not argue with them. They saw Sterling, that's good for me. I can only go by what I saw. And I say it, I'll qualify it by saying, if it's boxing, I don't qualify it. But it's this, all right, I'll take a back seat to you, you know, but I still felt that my sense of things told me slight for Cejudo. Yeah. For the reasons that I'm pointing out. I just thought that like I said, I thought it was tight enough where it was one of those fights where you've seen them before, where whoever takes the last round is going to win it. I thought it was that. I was wrong, I guess, but obviously. It reminds me kind of like when you think back how it can change things so dramatically, that one round. You go back long enough, which I go back, when there were 15-round fights, you had a fight that doesn't get enough credit, doesn't get enough play. It was one of the greatest rounds and last rounds ever. And we've had a lot of great rounds. Gaddy and Gaddy and Mickey Ward, Corrales and Castillo. I mean, we've had, and then you go back even further, forget about it. You had Boza Edwards and Bobby Chacon and Bazooka Lamone, all these guys fighting just incredible fights and incredible rounds. But Larry Holmes and Ken Norton, nobody talks about that enough. 15th round decided whoever wins this 15th round is going to be the heavyweight champ of the world, and it's going to change the trajectory of their life. And it did, because Larry Holmes won it and went on to be a multi-millionaire. He owns half of the town of Eastern Pennsylvania, you know, and he had almost more title defenses than Joe Louis. I don't know if he had more, he tied it, whatever, but he went on to be a great heavyweight champion. And it came to that one round. for me, that's kind of how it should be in a title fight, in an anticipated fight that we're all waiting for, that we're all, anticipating. If it's that kind of fight, if it turns to be that kind of fight, like sometimes Super Bowls, you got all the hype, but it doesn't turn out to be. But once in a while it does. And why does it? Because it comes down to a last-second play in the fourth quarter on the goal line. And for me, that's what you're looking for. And I thought that it might have came down to that. That okay, just like Holmes and Norton, whoever wins this last round, the 5th round, wins it. And it didn't quite play out that way. But I have nothing to begrudge here, nothing to get mad about. I don't have a right to anyway, but they both behaved like champions. They fought like champions. And the one thing that I want to give a little extra, I give a lot of credit to Cejudo. I want to give more credit to Sterling. One of the reasons I took Cejudo, I thought he might be a little mentally stronger. I did. I thought he might be. Sterling is so good, but I don't know if he was mentally there. He is now. Because by winning the title, I always said the old timers will always tell me it improves your 30%. Just winning it, the mental part of it. He has matured enough. He has seasoned enough. He's there. He's there. I wasn't sure if he was there to the level that Cejudo's there. But that's what won the fight for him at the end of the day, because he was there at that level mentally. Because if he wasn't, Cejudo would have exposed him in that area. He would have. So for me, I give credit to both of them. I give credit to Sterling for his everything, his mental fortitude, his being a champion. I give great credit for Cejudo coming off 3 years to make it that tight, to make it that competitive. Both of them are, I can't say more in a more flattering way than they fight like champs and they behave like champs, inside and outside the ring or the octagon.
No, perfect summation. And they had Sugar Sean O'Malley jumped in the cage afterwards, setting the stage.
I got a little of that. But that's what O'Malley does. He's like a Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor. That's his thing. His thing is the sizzle. He's a good athletic fighter. Very good. Now he's going to, if that happens, he'll get really tested. Really tested. Some people thought he lost 2 fights ago, 1 fight ago. I thought he might have lost, to be honest. But very athletic. But he's the sizzle. You got to have the entertainment component if you want to make extra dough, and the UFC loves it because you want to have those guys. You want to mix those guys in, and he's that guy. He's that guy, and so he did what that guy should do. That's the way that they would do it, right?
Jumped in there with his Michael Jackson jacket on, the red leather jacket.
I'll show you all.
Well, Teddy, that's a pretty thorough breakdown of a great weekend.
This was a nice episode. This was good to be with you guys. We're here in the gym where you like to be, I'm
glad you pointed out Rob's passion for Chinese food, big beef and broccoli guy.
I know that you guys got to go catch a plane and you got to fly back. Him to LA, you to Tennessee. Right?
I'm going to see my son's football game. He's going to be surprised to see that I could make it.
That's great.
Rob goes back to LA.
Just don't, Rob, do me a favor. Don't get any Chinese food there. Because I'm
teasing Rob. He doesn't eat meat.
I want you to be here with us next week.
Especially not at JFK.
No, you guys are vegans. Well, he's a real vegan.
He's a hardcore vegan. I like cheat a little bit.
He's a vegan too, except if you go to Peter Luger's. Then all of a sudden,
that's fair.
You get Peter Luger's steak. All of a sudden, hey Ken, I'm sorry you can't enjoy this. Why not? Why not? But you're a vegan. Not completely.
Not today. I'm not in a cult. Anyway, Teddy, that was great. Guys, thanks for being with us. Like Teddy said, please subscribe to the show. It means a lot to us. And we'll be back next week with some more entertaining action.